Today, we're jumping into a book that is so small you could read it in an hour, but its central idea is absolutely monumental. We're talking about James Allen's timeless classic, As a Man Thinketh. The whole thing is built on this one powerful concept, that our thoughts are the literal architects of our reality. So let's explore the blueprint it lays out for our lives.
And let's just dive right in with the single sentence that is the heart and soul of this entire work. For James Allen, this isn't just some nice-sounding proverb. He sees it as a fundamental law of the universe, like gravity. The idea is that your inner world of thought doesn't just influence your life, it directly creates it, right down to the very last detail.
So that brings us to the foundational principle of the whole book, the power of thought. The core idea is simple, but profound. You are, quite literally, what you think.
Now, what does he mean by that? Well, Allen argues that our character, who we are at our core, isn't something that just happens to us. It's not an accident. He defines it as the complete and total sum of all our thoughts. Think about it like this. Just like a plant has to spring from a seed, every part of our character is built, thought by thought, from the seeds we've been planting in our mind.
And this process isn't just happening inside our heads, right? Every single action we take, whether it's on impulse or something we've planned for months, is really just a thought coming into full bloom. And the consequences of those actions, the joy and the suffering we all experience, well, those are just the fruits that we eventually harvest from those original thought seeds.
Okay, so if thought creates character, how is that character actually built? See, Allen doesn't see this as some passive thing that happens to us. He presents it as a conscious act of construction. It's all about deliberately crafting your inner world. And you can really see the two paths he lays out for us here. A noble, strong character doesn't happen by chance. It's the direct result of sustained, continued effort in positive, constructive thinking. But on the flip side, what he calls an ignoble character comes from constantly holding on to what he calls groveling thoughts. Thoughts of negativity, of victimhood, of impurity. The point is, we are always forging our character, one way or the other.
And this quote, this contains the book's most empowering truth. We are not victims of circumstance. According to Allen, we hold all the tools. We are the masters of our thoughts, the molders of our character, and the makers of our own destiny. We can literally forge weapons in our minds that destroy us, or we can fashion tools to build what he calls heavenly mansions of joy and strength and peace.
Now, this is where Allen takes the idea a revolutionary step further. He argues that our inner world of thought doesn't just shape who we are, it literally creates our external reality. Your circumstances, your environment, he says it's all just a looking glass reflecting the state of your mind. He explains this with this really powerful metaphor. The mind is a garden. Now, whether you tend to that garden or you totally neglect it, it will produce something. If you don't intentionally plant useful seeds, like beautiful flowers, then all sorts of useless weed seeds are going to fall in, take root, and produce their own kind. The key thing to remember is the garden is never empty, it's always growing something. So, how do you take control? Well, the process is exactly like gardening. It takes real conscious effort. First, you have to diligently weed out all the negative, useless, and impure thoughts. Then, you have to actively cultivate and nurture the positive, useful, and pure ones. By doing this, you stop being a passive observer and you become the master gardener of your own soul. And this table right here, this is where the abstract ideas become totally concrete. Just look at the direct, unwavering lines he draws. Thoughts of fear, doubt, and indecision, they don't just make you feel bad, they actually crystallize into real-world circumstances of failure and dependence. But on the other hand, thoughts of courage, purity, and love will, just as inevitably, blossom into a life of success, peace, and prosperity. It's cause and effect. Which, of course, brings us to the most practical and pressing question of all, right? If our thoughts are really this powerful, how do we stop being a passive product of our thinking and start being the conscious creator of our own circumstances? How do we take control? Allen's answer is incredibly clear and direct. The bridge that connects the inner world of thought to the outer world of achievement is purpose. Purpose is the engine that directs all of our mental energy. You see, he argues that without a central guiding purpose, our thoughts are just allowed to drift. And this aimlessness, he says, is a vice. It leaves us completely vulnerable to all these petty worries, fears, and self-pity, which ultimately just lead to failure and unhappiness. So the solution is to find a legitimate purpose and make it the absolute centralizing point of all your thoughts. You have to focus your mental forces on it relentlessly, making it your supreme duty. He says this is the royal road to real self-control and true concentration of thought.
And this leads to one of the most beautiful and inspiring concepts in the entire book, the power of ideals, of visions. Alan insists that our cherished visions and dreams are not just fantasies. No, he says they are the literal promises of what we will one day be. Our dreams are the seedlings of our future realities.
And the path from a dream to reality follows this clear progression. A huge achievement always starts as a dream, like a tiny little acorn. But when that dream is combined with focused effort and deliberate action, it starts to grow and develop, until eventually that vision becomes your actual lived reality. You literally become one with your ideal.
So what's the end game of all this mental work? What's the ultimate goal? It's not just about worldly success or acquiring stuff. The final destination, according to Alan, is a really profound state of being.
Alan calls this state serenity. But this isn't a passive, lazy state of inaction. He calls it one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom, something precious that is earned through long and patient effort in mastering your own mind. It's the exquisite poise of a character that has been perfected.
And the power of a person like that is just immense. They don't just find peace for themselves. They actually become a source of strength and stability for everyone around them. In a world of chaos and turmoil, they become a shelter for others.
So, here it is, the final equation of the book, laid out perfectly. The path starts with self-control, which builds strength. That strength allows for right thought, which is true mastery over your mind. And from that mastery flows the unshakable power of calmness.
And so the ultimate takeaway from As a Man Thinketh is really a question that gets turned back to you. Alan says the world is your kaleidoscope, and the shifting patterns of your life are simply the beautifully adjusted pictures of your ever-moving thoughts. Which leaves us with this final provocative question. What picture are you creating?